done to the park's trees by the council spraying. It was this act of recognition that gave me that strength today. I put it to you as councillors to honour the mana and replace the trees. We, the Swap Park Community Group, can source the trees for you and will work with your spraying and gardening team as they repair the damage. As for the street planting, the time for action is now. Any questions?
Thank you, Ezra. Any questions for clarification? Don't think so. No, thank you.
No.
Thank you for sharing that information with us. That's wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to travel over today. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, we will now move on to item 7.1, which is the organisational climate risk assessment. And Anne, I'll invite you up with James to introduce him, please. Morning and welcome.
Thank you, Adrian. Morena tātou. This morning we're pleased to present the results of the organisational climate risk assessment, which has recently been completed, which looks at the climate-related risks to councils, assets, services and operations. And pleased to welcome James Hughes from Tonkin and Taylor, who's come across from the Tauranga office this morning, who led this work. I really want to acknowledge James and his team for their expertise and experience in leading this work. James has a real depth of knowledge in this area and was able to bring that to bear through each step of this process. I also really want to acknowledge staff right across council from every area of the organisation who generously contributed to this work. They worked really collaboratively together, and it was neat to see information from held in different parts of the organisation coming together to give some real depth to the understanding that's in this assessment. As you know, our climate risk assessment was one of the key pieces of work that was identified in the climate change river map adopted as part of the long-term plan. And this work is a key step for council in demonstrating and informing decision-making and management of climate risk to our organisation. So without further ado, I'll pass over to James to lead us through this presentation and discussion.
Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Called James Hughes to Koima. Thanks for having me here today, and I'll walk you through the presentation. And I think you're going to control things, so we'll just dive into it. I'm happy to take questions as we go through, and so feel free to see them. So just a little bit around the purpose, as Anne has alluded to. Slide, as you know, steps back to the climate change river map that was developed, and the main broad purposes were to understand climate risks to the district, understand how they could be managed going forward, and also serve as a bit of an education piece for staff as well as we went through. And just as by way of background, I suppose also I have and Tonkin and Taylor worked for a large number of councils around New Zealand, both regional and district level, and also the government at a national level. And so we've got a pretty strong understanding of government policy and direction and what other organisations are doing. Maybe that's we'll cover that shortly as well. So in terms of policy, this slide covers a few things that's probably good for you all to understand. I'll just cover a few of these. So the government has, back in 2020, delivered a national climate change risk assessment under the Climate Change Response Act. That has been repeated as we speak. There's a second national risk assessment being undertaken. I'm reviewing part of that at the moment. The government's also produced a national adaptation plan, emissions reduction plans, and also, interestingly, there's under the Climate Change Response Act, there's a requirement, there's a power that the minister has that can require lifeline utilities and councils to report on their climate risks. So that's a policy that exists that has been, I think, used twice, I think, in the last few years, where there's been a request to councils to report on specific climate risks. And the last thing that's probably relevant is the Office of the Auditor General, which some of you may be aware that they are placing increased scrutiny on councils' understanding and management of climate risk. So there's a few drivers there that sit at the national level.
Could I ask, for the benefit of ratepayers who say, how much is that costing us? Why did we not state that legislative requirement in the prelude to the thing, so that we as governments can say, well, we're required to do it. I'd like to see that somewhere in the thing.
That's the purpose. It's really the purpose.
Yeah, if that's not mentioned specifically in the summary report, which maybe it's not, we can add that in for sure. Good idea.
Thank you. When we talk about climate risks, I think I'll be speaking to people who understand this, but there are a range of what we call climate hazards that are on screen there, ranging from temperature-related hazards, flood-related hazards, and also if you're at the coast, obviously the coastal ones. If we go to the next slide, this summarises the hazards we're focused on for this assessment, which fall into the temperature and more so the flood-related ones. We had some really good flood data, which just recently been produced for the main centres that we were able to use to do some spatial analysis. So that present that briefly. And I guess we covered also hazards more qualitatively in terms of drought, extreme temperature, wildfire, and extreme weather and landslips as well. So where we had good data sets, we used those. Where we didn't have spatial data sets, we discussed those in a more qualitative sense.
I guess the interesting thing about wildfire is that somebody's lit a fire in order to become wildfire. The fire just doesn't happen generally unless there's a lightning strike, presumably, or something that creates there's a human behaviour involved in these wildfires too, is there not? I know the Canadian one recently, someone lit a fire, and I know if it's dry, well, it's going to take off. But the man has a choice there not to light a fire. Just saying.
That's a good point. No, in fact, we were on a call yesterday with the researchers at Silent, who are just producing after many years, a new data set, and it is probably one of the more interesting things to be able to model, because it's the combination of, like you say, an ignition source, whether that be man-made or from, say, a road or a railway,
yes,
or natural, or might be lightning. So there's an uncertainty around ignition sources, but then that's combined with the weather conditions and also vegetation cover and the availability of fuel. So they've combined this into a new data set that's going to be available in a month, I think. So that'll be interesting. So map the whole of the country.
Yeah. It's great.
Good morning. Thank you for coming in. I have a loaded question for you.
Yes.
So if you can't answer it, that's fine. But I'm just going to throw it your way for some consideration. Is your document predicated on the climate warming? And if so, how do you respond to the 100 billion tonnes of ice on the southern pole and the 500 million tonnes of new ice forming at the North Pole in response to cooling measures around the planet? Now, I did warn you it was loaded.
Yeah.
So have fun with that.
It is predicated on the climate warming and the rate of change of the climate warming. So there are various scenarios that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have produced. It's predicated on that science rather than alternative rules. So so I can't comment on that assertion. I can show you that I've got a slide showing the scenarios that we've used, and I can talk through.
I'm aware of those scenarios.
Yeah.
But my question is more, you're using one data set, not all the available data sets. If your document is predicated on only global, that's not entirely accurate, and that's not fair to ratepayers who are watching this and wondering why we're only looking at one side of the coin. If you're looking for the truth of the matter, you find that it's in the middle of multiple sources, not just one. So I No disrespect to you, sir, because you've got a job to do, but I just want to be clear that I understand myself where you're getting your basis for this entire.
Yeah, answer the question. It's from the warming side, but
Yeah, and I guess we are basing our assessment of climate hazards from the published New Zealand the New Zealand projections of climate change under the same set of IPCC scenarios that have come from so that there's an IPCC globally. New Zealand as a country has adopted national projections that hang off those scenarios, and then councils are also using them. So that all ties together, and there's a coherence between those. That's the logic by which we've chosen those set of scenarios for the assessment. So it's also based on nationally produced guidance as well on how to go about climate risk assessment.
I think it's regardless of that too. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, Kelly, but you've still got to respond to what we are seeing, and we are seeing that, the weather is getting more adverse and blah, blah, blah. There might come a time when that starts to settle if things are cooling at the top and the bottom, but right in front of us for now, this is in response to what we're seeing anyway, right?
Correct. I mean,
I can remember back in 1958 though.
yeah, no, that was a nature hunger in 1958.
1958.
The 58
Yes.
flood.
58 months, yeah. Or the 81. Yeah.
Horrible fun.
Yeah. But anyway, this is the framework that
Yeah.
councils are required to work from, and yeah.
So
these are the
this slide on screen now does speak to this point, and it doesn't address the question, but it demonstrates the scenarios that are available to use. And I'll try and explain this very simply. If you continue to use fossil fuels into the future at historic rates, there's the top two lines on that screen, which is a red line and a black line. And if you look to your right of those, there's some numbers. So if you follow the red line, by end of century, you're sort of around 3.6 degrees on average warmer. If you happen to follow the black line, which is very unlikely, then you're up to 4.4. So anything in the red or black is extreme levels of warming in the tropics, and by many scientists would say that becomes really difficult to live in the tropical area. If we follow those lines, that is catastrophic in many parts of the world. If you follow the pink line, which is the middle one, which bends down, that's at 2.7 by end of century, and if we're able to reduce emissions following the blue or the green line, that dips below 2 degrees, and you've got 1.8 or 1.4. That is where everyone's trying to head by reducing emissions. But the reality is we may not achieve that, and there's reason to be cautious about our ability to do that.
So can I ask, say, if we reduce emissions, who do you mean by we?
The globe.
The globe.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a global problem.
It's a global problem. So the government have just suggested that they want to sideline the Climate Change Commission, which came out yesterday, or I read it yesterday. So they obviously want to minimise the catastrophic issues of emissions, right? Is that?
Yeah, I think the word sideline might not be exact. They've talked about changes to the Climate Commission's advice and how the government has to adhere to that, but I don't think they've said they're going to remove the commission or get rid of it altogether. So at the moment, the commission presents a series of advice, and the government has to respond to that. They don't have to adopt these issues.
What it's telling me is that there is a change of government.
That's right.
And there is a change in priorities.
That's right.
And in thoughts, and it may change what we have.
Correct. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
To which way? Morally.
Really less. What we in New Zealand do won't make a jot of difference to the world.
And the cost of what it costs.
At 0.017% of global emissions, what will NPDC do to affect climate change on a global scale? This is why we need to look at this at a local level, not a global level. So these numbers are great, But they are a global number, right? Where's the New Zealand specific data? This is good, but where's the New Zealand specific data that you're basing these projections on? Someone in Geneva who doesn't live in the mighty Waikato doesn't know what our conditions are like, and they're making some bold assumptions to get something.
So if I can just clarify, I think, can we go back to that previous slide? So the point of this is to say that there are many different futures that the emissions globally could take. When we're thinking about the risks at a local level, we need to say, are we thinking about a world where we're really warm and the whole globe has done very little to reduce emissions? Therefore, we're going to feel the worst impacts of a warm planet locally, extreme temperatures, extreme floods, extreme droughts, or are we going to be more optimistic and say we've actually been able, as a globe, been able to reduce emissions so that physical impacts of climate change, floods, droughts, that I'm talking about, are actually to a lesser degree. So when we're thinking about climate risk, this is really important because it tells us what level of risk we might experience. So I agree with what you're saying. New Zealand arguably has very little influence on global emissions, but at a Matamata-Piako level, you need to understand what risks you might be facing.
And I guess what I would add, if you don't mind, I certainly don't have anywhere near the expertise that many of you do have in this subject. What I do know is that at a council, we create and expand and develop communities that have lives of hundreds of years. And we've made decisions in the past, not just us, but other councils, about where communities might develop, which we might have made differently if we had taken different data into consideration. So for me, from an executive perspective, for me, the climate risk is one risk, infrastructure development risk is another one, financial risk is another one. What this document does for me is enable my organisation to take into consideration other data to reflect on when we're making decisions for the future communities that we have to sustain. And I'm not anywhere in terms of making any decision or any view as to what facts are right. I like the fact that we are presented with as an organisation internally, and that our people are asked to think about scenarios so that we can make better decisions for investment going forward and to protect our community. So that's from an officer perspective, trying to localise all of these big issues.
Yeah, it's taking a step back from the political and broad view of this whole concept, but understanding it at a local level, which is significant. And yeah, like when we do have droughts, what are we doing with our water conservation? There's those sorts of things that are genuine risks to our community. And when places flood, we don't want this land use. It's all those aspects that. And if you go back to the purpose of forming the strategy is to integrate the understanding of these risks into our planning, our operations, our services going forward. So I'll let you keep going, unless you were wanting to say something else now, Bruce.
Actually, I don't disagree with
that concept.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
It is the political side of it,
Bruce, take it
right?
Turn the light on.
Sorry, I apologise. Right, and perhaps from that political side, page 16 talks about risk. It's the risk that elected members choose not to support investment in climate resilience, leading to increased costs to repair damage. So it's really saying you're not going to agree to this, so we're going to hold you responsible. But that's the democratic process, isn't it? Right? We are entitled to make a
100%. The choice is yours. What I think my challenge is to present the best information available to you to enable you to make that choice that is still yours. And to the point about the source of the information, we have external parties, auditors, and the like, who are looking at the data that we're using and whether it's credible. So you're absolutely, the decisions are yours. I have to say and I think I said this around the whole resilience strategy and not just the risk side of it. For me, it is translating it into a way that we can consider in our daily business. The decisions on investment the decision, that's still yours, but we can at least put that lens over. And I love the way the team have been brought into this whole discussion, because you've leveraged off their knowledge. You've leveraged off whatever their position is on climate change. You've asked them to think about risks. And so look, I'm staying out of the political arena. I'm very much ensconced in the how do I make our organisation deliver the right information for you to make the right choices for our community.
Right. So from the political side, right? From the political side, it's likely that we will be asked, why are you doing this? And that's why I want that statement in there. Right? Okay. And they're going to say, and how much is it costing us? So I'd like to know what budget provisions we've made and how much we've spent today, right? So that our ratepayers know exactly where we are. That's where I'm coming. I don't disagree with how you're actually embedding it into the organisation. It's why and how much it's costing.
Can I just make an observation about that? I'm not absolutely true to have that. What I also love about this process, as I said before, the focus has been on leveraging what we already do. So we are already involved in flood hazard or hazard mapping and flood hazard mapping for a reason, and we're able to leverage off that. So in terms of costing some of this, I just think that, as I say, I'm really pleased that you've leveraged off initiatives that we've had underway.
Yeah, and taking it to the next step from an emergency management perspective.
Yes.
When you understand the risks, we can support those that are caught out the most, because we know where the risk areas are. That's another very strategic and sensible thing to do for our communities.
So we were talking earlier about the different scenarios of warming. When we come to think about risk, we've got some some projections from the Waikato Regional Council that have been produced. And this, I won't go through these in detail, but what they do show you is that there are different climate variables like extreme hot days, which could be the number of days above 25 or 30 degrees. There's drought projections, there's projections around flooding, etc. And those are, we're able to extract those projections under those different scenarios. So at different time frames, we can say, what is the likely number of hot days at mid-century or at end of century under a high warming scenario or a moderate scenario? And that, again, helps us think about what the different risks might be under those different scenarios. So we're not picking one and saying we're going to plan for an extreme one. We're asking stakeholders, and in this case, we ran some workshops and we spoke with staff about if we get 100 more hot days a year, 100 more days above 25 degrees, which could be plausible by end of century, what would that mean to the way that water supplies delivered, or parks and or waste management services, etc. So those were all the way the conversations were held, and we ran workshops and summarised all that information, which is in the report. So what?
Just a point there. Why are the staff going to be helpless?
Sorry, that was just an example. Yeah, but we covered. So
I just think the community might get better work than staff, because it looks as if we're,
great point. So maybe we can talk about that now, just so people are clear of what was looked at. So when we looked at risks, we focused on these areas on the screen, which is broad strategy and planning risks, but more specifically, roading, stormwater, water, wastewater, rubbish and recycling, community facilities and parks and reserves. And within each of those, I think customers and staff or community and staff were considered. What we didn't cover, which is probably worth noting, is broader risks to the community. And some councils are looking at that as a separate sort of focus of risk assessments, where it becomes what are the risks to economic sectors, what are the risks to health and well-being of community. So we had to put some.
If it's health to the staff, you don't have to do a new plan to say
Correct.
It's health to the community. You don't have to go through the whole process again to look out for some.
Correct. So the methodology, pretty simple. We developed a long list. We through the workshop, as I mentioned, and then we went through a rating process and we did risk ratings to put a priority on those risks that were deemed to be more urgent than others. And then there's a next step there around adaptation. Just some key points around the process. So as I mentioned, we did a staged approach. We did some quantitative mapping, and developed some numbers, which might be interesting to some of those who want to look at specific numbers, particularly around infrastructure exposed to flooding. And then there was a larger part around the qualitative assessment, and we rated those risks. And that image there on screen just is the guidance that the Ministry for the Environment has published around how to undertake these types of assessments. So just some summary data here, and we'll just go through this quickly and feel free to ask questions. I'll begin with some of this GIS or the quantitative assessments. This first one here is based on just an example, the wastewater infrastructure that is exposed in Matamata. And it's got a whole lot of detail, but to just give you an example, in a band of between 0.1 metre and 1 metre depth, there are 359 manholes in the floodplain. So that's in the, I can't highlight in the blue column if they're different bands of flooding. So on the current 1 in 100 year floodplain, there are around 360 manholes exposed to that floodplain. If we then look at that in the future and we put some climate factors on that floodplain, it increases to 432 manholes. So we've got a whole range of data sets, and that's mapped so council staff can understand which pieces of infrastructure are exposed to flood hazards in different contexts, and can use that to prioritise where the higher risk areas of the networks are. We've got maps for wastewater, water supply, roads, etc. So that's one example. And then sorry, bear with me. On the roading side, there's in Te Aroha, for example, there's around 1,500 metres or 1.5 kilometres of road exposed to flooding in Te Aroha, and that increases to 2,500 under the climate factor scenario. So again, there's a bunch of data, and we can explore that. It helps manage those. And the last example, just to talk you through it, would be the flood exposure for parks and open spaces. There is, say, in Morrinsville, around 34 hectares of parks and open space exposed currently, and that increases up to around 44 hectares. Reading the blue boxes there. So lots of data there that can be explored if people are interested. I'll move on to the more qualitative risks, and we'll talk through these, and there's about probably 10 slides just looking at those different areas I mentioned. We'll begin with the strategy, planning and governance, and these are just some examples of the risks, and we've just pulled out the higher rated ones, so we won't go through the whole risk tables there. These ones include risk to staff and health and safety from extreme weather events, which was the highest rated consequence there. The next one, the risk to emergency management. Emergency management functions being put under pressure over time, particularly as staff need to respond to more frequent events and their business as usual activities are put under pressure. The last one was risk of inaccurate information being placed and linked to property records, so that I guess the increased scrutiny on LIM reports and the hazard information that needs to be supplied to those, and risks associated with council having the appropriate controls around what gets placed on LIM reports. So those are some examples of those risks in that domain. Next one is on roading. These covered risks mainly to extreme weather, high winds, and flooding. And the first one was bridges and major culverts. The second one was risk to roading infrastructure due to high winds and causing tree fall and outages and power lines being toppled. The third one was flooding, particularly in Matamata. So that was, we split out some of the townships, given that some were, through the discussions, more exposed to flooding than others. And I guess just a note there, you'll see on screen how there's various colours that go from left to right. The way the risks are rated is there's a present day risk, which is the left-hand most column, and if the risk is deemed high, for example, earlier in time, those are the ones you might sort of focus on first. So that the times go into the future. So we've got a present day risk, then we've got a mid-century risk and an end of century risk under different warming scenarios. So that's how those are.
So the fascinating about the thing about the roading risks, and obviously power companies are actively chopping down trees near significant infrastructure, and obviously being a farmer, well aware. It's not something that we're necessarily strongly in control of, but I guess it's something that we could advocate that farmers don't plant trees near significant infrastructure like power lines.
Yeah.
That not only affects them, but it'll also affect their road and a network, because that's what happened in February with Cyclone Gabrielle around Morrinsville, because that's where the winds were hit. Yeah. And there were farms without power for a week because they were busy. They do the bigger areas first where most people are affected. When you go to a no exit road where there's half a dozen properties, they're often left to last. So there is a significant risk there. So we need to probably, while it's not necessarily in control of us as a council, it's how we can engage with our communities to understand that risk. Because it doesn't matter whether it's just a normal wind or not, like you are putting your power infrastructure at risk to your community, regardless of adverse weather, whether the adverse weather is increasing or not.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it kind of speaks to the lifeline utilities and how well they're coordinated in different regions. I think it's emerging for current issue.
And it's what's council's role in that, not necessarily something active, but it's something that we could at least have a conversation with the community about when we're doing other stuff.
Yeah, very good. So on the stormwater one, we just moved to pretty straightforward and sort of makes sense here, but risk of extreme weather and flooding exceeding capacity of stormwater networks, which to be honest, most councils are struggling with in terms of flooding and capacity of stormwater systems. There was one specific one which was rated quite high, which was the risk of the Te Aroha flood control structures. And there's a box culvert, and the box culvert being damaged or blocked in extreme events. So that was quite a specific one.
That's your that's your Don McLeod ones.
He didn't build them. The big ones. Right. They were built for that route. They actually were put in there because of the obstruction that was caused in
that's right.
an event.
Yeah, so what I mean, what do you mean by these box? Which ones are we talking about?
Those structures. Those are the ones where my mind went to.
Yeah, it's like for box culverts over here.
Yeah,
is that the ones we're talking about?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit more detail there. It just talks about high risk of debris flows which can damage or block the flood control structure, especially in the hilly area, leading to a risk of flow into the residential area tunnel. So that's the discussion that's had.
Yep.
Okay, on the water side, just a couple here, but drought was mentioned, but I haven't got it on screen. The ones that were highest rated risk were risk to accessibility of the Tills Road water treatment plant. And just the sort of access issues there, and then erosion risks relating to infrastructure adjacent to streams. So we've got high velocity water flows and water infrastructure adjacent to water courses. Sorry, there is a drought one there on the next page. You can see this one's moves a little bit more from high, then it moves to very high and extreme. So this is the drought risks, reduced water availability due to drought and rainfall variability. So that one, and also impacts on stream health, as you get to the lower water levels and warmer conditions. So that was one of the higher rated ones. The wastewater side, sort of risks generally from inflow and infiltration, which is again a pretty common issue around the country with old networks. So more rainfall, more water ingress, we get overflows and function. The wastewater system doesn't function as intended, and the consequential health risks that might arise. And again, erosion, stream erosion was mentioned there as well. On the rubbish and recycling side, there was a risk to the Matamata closed landfill located adjacent to the Matamata stream, and there's, it was perceived that it was a moderate risk currently, but could increase over time. So it wasn't, it's not orange or red like the other one. Then moving on to community facilities and property. There are a few moderate risks there, and maybe one at the bottom, the highest one, was the risk to the heritage buildings and sites in Te Aroha due to landslides. So it was moderate currently, but it reads the risk of damage and closure of heritage listed buildings and sites from flooding and landslides. There are, e.g. in the Te Aroha domain, there are also different buildings. So that was mentioned. And flooding to council-owned buildings was a moderate risk. This one here is parks and reserves. Parks and reserves there are quite a lot of discussion around parks and reserves, given obviously natural environments are exposed to climate extremes. This one was risk to trees in parks and reserves during extreme events and damage associated with wind, falling branches, etc. So that was one of the higher risks that was mentioned there. And the last one was risk to native vegetation and higher temperatures, so relating to bush and wetlands, increasing temperatures resulting in heat stress to native vegetation, which could impact on native forestry and planting in general around the area. So that's just a whistle stop through some of the higher rated risks. Are there any comments or questions on that?
To questions, I guess, people are thinking, I guess the thing around this is that there are risks without any controls, and there are some simple things that can be done to mitigate some of the risk, and there are some things that are so excessively expensive that we cannot afford to avoid. Like that's the scale of it, really, isn't it? We can understand our risks, and as from a budgetary perspective, there are some things that are relatively cheap, and then there are other things that are cost inhibitive. We can do a cost benefit analysis of these things. So I guess that sums it up.
Yeah, exactly right.
A less loaded question for you this time. For the rest that you presented to us just now, are they entirely within NPDC purview, or is that inclusive of national government level and regional government level risks as well? Just so I
would say the vast majority are related to NPDC, given that was the focus of the assessment social organisation. There will, as you mentioned earlier, there are some indirect risks that are out, and those are captured separately. So, for example, if you have a power outage that impacts your pump stations, you have some control over that, finally having generators available or something. So I would say, yeah, so the vast majority you have some or most control over theory.
Thank you. Just purely for understanding, on several pages, page 16, and I know also it's on page 52 of the assessment anyway, it talks about losses, pump stations and culverts. Because is that a incorrect word or whatever?
What does it mean by losses?
Yeah, but it's definitely in the agenda. It's on page 16 and in the assessment. It just came up again. Losses, pump stations and culverts.
Let me try and find that.
Page 52 or page 50 or of our attachment.
Is it relating to one of the specific risks?
Oh, I've just,
GIS, it's 6.2, flood hazard exposure analysis, right? And it then goes on.
so this is, I think, in relation to the flood model, not the risks. So this is talking about the Waikato region. So there were two flood models, two sources of spatial flood data that we used. There was a high granularity or more accurate flood models for the townships, and then there was a regional flood model that the regional council provided. The regional flood model doesn't include some things in it. It's a more sort of lower level model, and it doesn't model correctly pump stations, culverts, and what they call losses. So and that's a technical term, I understand.
So it's a technical term.
Yeah, losses. So losses, pump stations and culverts are not yet included. What that actually means, I think, it's going to be a far more.
Right. Okay, no, that's right. It's just I thought, is it a spelling error or something? It just didn't understand.
Yeah, it's related to the flood model. So
Any further questions? Keep going.
So Anne, maybe together, did you want to talk to this, or there's really just some next steps that are being considered, making. Thank you. Some relate to sort of implementing the risk assessment and making use of it. Others relate to sort of further next steps. And I guess to the point earlier around understanding how you might respond to those key risks and whether they are easy or low cost initiatives or whether they're actually more, for example, in emergency management, some areas you might not be able to, and not so costly that you actually have to just think about how you respond. But there will be a process we haven't, or the process that we've gone through identifying what the response is to those highly rated risks. That would be a next step.
Yeah. So yeah, we have both that really quantitative GIS analysis data that we can, we're going to scrutinise a lot more closely and work with. Both the GIS data and the qualitative risk assessment can now be integrated into the asset management planning process. That's one step.
This is the SSPs and the RCPs and the.
The SSPs and RCPs are part of that diagram that James showed.
All I've got is dollar signs really.
Yeah, and I guess it's understanding that this is the starting point of understanding the risks. So it's the same with emergency management, and you know, like we all know that the inquiry that happened after Cyclone Gabrielle down the East Coast, and if you don't understand your risks, our response is left wanting. And I always remember when Basil, or I'm quoting Basil, that in an emergency of that scale, you will always be found wanting. It's to what degree, and if we if we understand our communities well enough and our risks profile, we can then appropriately respond in a better manner than you would not actually formally understand the risk, given that we have staff changes, we have people in this working in this organisation that have a lot of intellectual knowledge of our district. All it takes is for a few retirements and you lose some of that intellectual knowledge. So by having this actually formally documented does actually give an organisation an opportunity to perform more consistently. So that sum it up?
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to say, for me, the whole process of risk management in our organisation is developing and evolving, and this is part of it. I could just imagine if 5 years ago we said to our team, righto, we want to apply certain climate change scenarios across your organisation and now review all our risk. And I think that would have been quite scary, to be honest. I think the process that the team have been working through is taking our team's knowledge and translated it into terms which aligns with the kind of business decisions that we're having to make. Ultimately, this risk management process for me is about getting to a point where you can express your risk tolerance, right? So we've done this in a number of areas, and I don't mean to trivialize this. This is important. You think about earthquake-proofing buildings, where we've been deciding what level do we go to, and we've made some calls about a level that we think will be acceptable in certain scenarios. So the decision will ultimately always stormwater upgrades for CBD areas. What are we faced with? What are the consequences? So for me, this is filling in the picture. It's actually helping our team, in my opinion, get into that frame of taking the scenario planning and then translating it into decisions and information that you can make good calls on. So I'm really grateful for the process. It's building on a number of, this is one front, it's happening in other areas, and risk and assurance, we'll be talking about some of that next week. So I'm really, to your point, yes, this is actually, to me, starting to make it where the rubber hits the road kind of thing.
Yeah, great. Dane and then Sharon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, you go on about the cost of doing the reports and things like that, and it has to be forefront of mind to some extent. But what we have here is avoiding the ambulance having to be at the bottom of the cliff. And so, you know, yes, there's a cost to doing this report, but if it's utilised correctly, there is big cost savings to be had utilising this report as well, because you can avoid those catastrophes happening. They cost a lot more to repair than they do to, you know, to stop at the start. And so for me, you know, that's what we need to take from it as a council is, yes, we spent some money on it, but we should be able to, you know, recoup some costs when these things potentially start happening down the track as well.
Yeah, and I guess the non-financial side of it is serving our communities to the level that we need to as well. Sharon.
Yeah, I'm on Jane's page. All of this information to me, if I was to sum it up, means that NPDC moving forward with their strategy, their climate strategy, it's better for us to be proactive in the long term now than have to be reactive, always be reactive moving forward. So that's the way I'm looking at it for us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, if there's no further, oh, sorry, Kevin, you spotted your light. That's excellent.
I've just been sitting here pondering how I'm going to phrase this.
Articulate, yeah.
Me and climate change are a little bit at odds at times. But I think I've come to the conclusion that I can't disagree that there is global warming. I don't think there's a damn thing that we can do about it as on a local level, even possibly even in New Zealand, to affect any of that, since the top four contributors, China, India, the United States, and the European Union, are like over 80%. China probably produces more global warming in half a day than we do in a full year. But I think we do have to consider what we do to mitigate the effects of us locally. You know, in using Dane's point, I don't think it's a matter of getting rid of the ambulances at the bottom of the cliff. I think it's reducing the number of ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, because I don't think we're going to get rid of them all. It's been used in an analogy like for rubbish and recycling. If we didn't collect rubbish and recycling, it would just mount up, you know. So but our contribution to worldwide rubbish collection would be high. So yeah, I mean that's kind of how I see climate change, global warming, if you like. And if you look at it along those lines, it's more of a reduce the number of ambulances at the bottom of the cliff.
So that talks to the word resilience. Okay, with that presentation completed, could I have someone please move the recommendation that council receives the report and presentation? Yeah, we have Sharon, seconded Dane. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today and giving some good explanations. Thank you. Right, so now we move on to item 7, which is a special award this morning. Are the team here? Are they waiting? Are they? So this morning, wait until they come on. It'll be just a couple of seconds. Okay. Right, yes, we are. Perfect timing. Good morning. Good morning, Jeanette, Sharon and Melissa. All right, we're running to schedule, so you've timed it well. We're not going to hold you up. Just want to introduce this item 7.2 to Dip Miller. They're the award winners of the community contribution to a community award. So just to give some background, this is a special agenda item, and it's purely because this is an award we present at our Bailey's Business Night Out every year. And we held that 3 weeks ago, and unfortunately the team couldn't join us in the evening. But the purpose of our business night out, of course, is to bring our business community together across the Matamata-Piako district and to celebrate local business. This contribution to community award recognises a business person or a business that makes a significant contribution to their community over a period of time. We choose a winner by rotation of the three main communities, and this year it was Te Aroha Business's turn to be recognised. And of course, this year's winner is Dip Miller. So I will head up to the to greet the girls up to front. Oh, I can carry it. 2 arms. Hi. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, and I'll turn this one on. Yeah, just well, I won't present it to you just yet. Just really want to acknowledge Dip Miller's award this year. It's a business that's been in the community for over 50 years. It's an intergenerational business that's given back to the community for many years. And at the heart of the business are family and community values while providing first-rate service to their clients. We acknowledged, obviously, one of the founding partners a few years back, Kelly, Dip Darren's dad, and of course his significant involvement in the community. This business has grown significantly over the years, with offices in Morrinsville and Thames as well. And the initiation of a formalised philanthropic fund for the benefit of the local community shows the meaningful difference that their contribution is making to their community. So joining us today, obviously from receipt award, we have Sharon Coe, Jeanette Chubb and Melissa Slattery, and also like to acknowledge Ed Wagstaff and Darren Dipros, who are the other partners, directors in this business. But of course, it's a big organisation where you have a lot of staff working under you. I'd just like to thank you for your ongoing commitment to Te Aroha and the surrounding different districts, and congratulations. And it's my pleasure to present you with this beautiful award that you'll be able to put on your front desk in the new office. It's fabulous. Who's
oh, there you go.
Congratulations to you all. And this is us. And you'd like a right of reply, I'm sure, because many of you would have been at the Business Awards and seen the recording of the video. And obviously, but you haven't seen it.
No.
Oh, we must. Oh, I can forward that to you. We could have just about played it today, but anyway, I'll forward that to you. Yeah. It was lovely. That's where I picked up on obviously the family community values in your client base. So congratulations. So welcome to speak.
Oh no. It's amazing to be recognised actually for the award. Really appreciate it. Nice to be here, and thank you for that. And we live in our community. We have families in our community, our staff, and really appreciate what our community does. Thank you.
And that's really at the heart of our local businesses across our district. They're local people running local businesses, supporting their local communities. So well done again, and you're welcome to stay on for morning tea. We've got a long service presentation straight after this, so if you'd like to take a seat and join us for a bit longer and have a coffee with us at the morning tea, we'd love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And because we have to Because we have to, obviously it's an agenda item, would someone like to move that? Moved James, seconded Russell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, we now move on to item 7.3, where we have some staff moving in to join us this morning to recognise the service of Tracy Johnson. Who's going to speak to that one? Deb's going to speak.
Yeah.
Come on up, yeah, whether it's easier to, where do we want to position, just sit up at the microphones might be easier, and then we'll do that there. Yeah, take your seat and yeah, lead the way, Deb.
Sit down.
Yeah, you can, or you can stand, it's up to you.
Actually, I'll sit down.
Yeah, it's not often you get to present in here, is it?
No,
Not at all.
Well, 5 years ago, actually, it's my own 20 year.
Wow.
So,
Isn't that awesome?
So, kia ora koutou. I'm Debbie Darby and I am the Kaiharangi Tima Tangata Mete Oranga People and Wellness Team Leader. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today to celebrate Trace's 20-year milestone of service at MPDC. So 5 years ago, when I had my presentation, some of you would have been in this room when Don made the comment about me hardly been here over my 20 years because I'd been off on maternity leave so many times. So one of those times was when Trace came and joined us. So 20 years ago, she took over my role, and therefore MPDC has been very blessed to have her, and obviously thanks to me for going on maternity leave. So Trace is our payroll officer, and I think what's quite unique about Trace is she's done the same job in the same team for the last 20 years. So she has been paying us all. Most people that have done their 20 years or plus service have sort of moved around a little bit or changed positions, but Trace has done this for the whole 20 years, which is pretty awesome. So she pays all the staff, the counsellors, weekly, fortnightly, monthly. And I know some people think payroll's just the click of a button, and voila, everyone is paid. However, we know that is far from the truth. Trace administers all sorts of different pay arrangements. Payroll is complex and time consuming, and Trace has great expertise in the payroll space over the years. Has very successfully navigated a less than perfect Holidays Act. Yay, we're getting changes soon. With a less than perfect payroll system to ensure our payroll compliance. So I worked out over 20 years, Trace we would have done 1,800 pay runs, Trace. So take off 100 because you might have been on leave. So that's 1,700 odd pay runs that Trace has processed. Not once has Trace failed to complete the pay run on time. Now, we know that obviously not completing pay run is catastrophic and we would never, ever let that happen. But I think it should still be recognised and acknowledged that that is an awesome achievement. So Trace is a real asset to MPDC. She is one of those employees that lives our values daily. She does it right, she does it better, and she does it together. And Trace always gets involved in the fun side of work too. So whether it's morning tea celebrations, team events, council sports tournaments, Christmas dues, or connecting with staff outside work, she has such a positive attitude about working at MPDC, and I know she feels grateful to be here. So in honour of your 20, you are very grateful. I know you're grateful. You do tell me you are. So in honour of your 20 years, Trace, I asked our People and Wellness team to give me some words to describe you. So here's our 20 words that describe what you are like and what you like to work with. Clever, adventurous, carefree, patient, kind, fun, caring, supportive, selfless, loyal, analytical, bubbly, reliable, approachable, understanding, spontaneous, curious, grounded, laid back, and beautiful inside and out.
Oh, wow.
You can take this with you, Trace. So finally, Trace, I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of all the staff for paying us all these years. Sometimes I think payroll is actually a really thankless job, but if someone thinks you've done something wrong, they are on the phone to you immediately. So I just want to acknowledge the great job that you've always done. We're incredibly grateful to you and we appreciate all that you do. So congratulations on your 20 years.
Thank you.
I know you've told me you won't give us another 20. But we will certainly take what we can get from you.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Very appreciative of Debbie having composed that speech because it really cuts back what I need to say for everybody's benefit. But I can't not say something, Tracy, and instances like this, you reflect on people, and sometimes you learn things that you hadn't appreciated before. And I believe that's what's happened here. Look, Debbie's talked about the way that you operate and the values that you operate under. And I believe it doesn't matter whether it was payroll or anything else, you would have done exactly the same thing. But to have somebody doing this particular job with your inherent sense of fairness, your determination that there are no half measures, it has to be done right, it's an incredible fit. What I would say about you in a word is unfazed. I don't think I've ever really seen you phased. Whether it's the frustration of people not doing their timesheets properly, the system almost crashing close to deadline, auditors continually asking the same questions, all due respect, and having to explain to people like me why I can't do what I want to do. When I combine those characteristics and those strengths with the role that you have, and the fact that you operate under such incredible deadlines every time, you have to get it on time, done at time, and that the results of your job are scrutinised by everybody so closely. If it's not right, you'll hear about it. What I crystallise in my mind, that in actual fact, you love these hurdles and these challenges. These are the things that you thrive on, and that's one of the reasons why you're still here after 20 years. So what my commitment to you is, Tracy, is I'll keep throwing some hurdles in front of you, keep giving you those challenges, and I will not take for granted the way that you operate in the role that you have, more importantly in our whole organisation. Tracy, on behalf of Council and our organisation, present this to you.
I got to challenge you a little bit there, Mania, because I don't think it's the thriving based on those hurdles and obstacles. It's the people that are why I am still here 20 years down, and why I every day that I come to work is a joyous one. My work colleagues have become my dearest friends, and friendships that have transcended beyond working together, and will, I'm sure, continue to do so. I've had 3 amazing managers in my time here: Jan, Kelly, board, and guidance has gone way beyond just the job. The leadership from the top is inspiring and motivating. I had and have the utmost respect and admiration for Don, and that has and continues on, you, Mania. The work-life balance has enabled me to continue that 20 years with and through my kids growing and the affordability to be there for the big moments with them, but then also through being able to help with my mum and decline. I am just truly blessed and grateful. Thank you all.
Tracy, it's always heartwarming to hear these words, and it follows on actually from the award we've just presented, because at the end of the day, council is a little bit different from a business, but we do have a family orientated organisation here, and I do love the do it right and be better together. I just that is a really positive analogy of what what we stand for here in council. So lovely to see all the people, staff that are supporting you today. Unfortunately, it was Jan McLaren, actually, for those who don't know, when she mentioned Jan as her first manager. Jan McLaren, of course, is from Morrinsville and did work for council previously that many of you wouldn't know. So, yeah, no, it's wonderful and lovely to share this time with you. And I'll just ask for this to be received. Thank you, Caleb. Move, Caleb. Seconded, Gary. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And we will now break morning tea and welcome everybody here. Okay, we're just getting back online. Okay, welcome back, everyone. And it's lovely to celebrate contribution to community good and a long service presentation, which is wonderful. Right, so we now move on to item 7.4, and we're welcoming obviously our Morrison Chamber of Commerce representatives. We've got Nigel as the chair and Kathy is the infamous I'm not the room. So good morning, welcome. Presenting their annual report to us today. So welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just make sure it's on.
Put the light on, yeah.
We've got a little
Push the button down the bottom. Yep, that's right.
Okay, good evening. Yep, thank you, and thank you, Mayor Adrian and councillors. Thanks for the invitation to come along to present our annual report. You would have received it in your pack anyway, just with the annual accounts that we presented at our AGM. But it's sort of this presentation, 5 minutes, just extrapolates some of the main points out of that. And so I guess right from the get-go, right, so just a little bit of history around for those who aren't familiar with the Chamber of Commerce. We're probably a little bit more favoured by Trump than the UN is, so it's an international organisation. It's traced back to the 1600s. It actually really found its way after the First World War when we were looking to build relations across borders, and effectively the organisation became known as the Merchants of Peace, which is what trade is all about. So it's one of the largest network organisations in the world. It does have a seat at the UN as well, which is as an observer, but primarily facilitate the Chamber of Commerce itself has various roles around the world, and some of them are very close to government. And in New Zealand, it's not quite at that level, but we do issue export licenses and so forth, which the Hamilton Chamber does. But locally, we're more event focused and community focused. So a little bit about the local history there, as it was 2 organisations in Lonsdale back in 2008. We merged those, all the Chamber of Commerce in 2013. And within that year, we built the new information centre alongside a council grant and a lease for the land and community contributions as well. And then we set about broadening our scope of activities. So really this year, we're still a non-profit organisation, but we still make money. It's important to do that. We are an incorporated society, so we're having to renew our charter this year, so it's taking a little bit of time. Excuse me. But generally our object is to promote ideas for the betterment of the town and promote knowledge of the wider district. So that's our cornerstone object. And we've got Rape Information Centre, the AA services also. Information Centre is more of a community. It's like a swimming pool or a library, it doesn't make money, but it's there to support the community, and it's basically cross-subsidised by the activities of the Chamber and the AA service. Our revenue has been pretty consistent at 381 this year, 381,000. It does include a council grant, that's 35% of our revenue. The other revenue streams are the fireworks, that's our big one. And we have been profitable for the last 3 years with that. Now that can turn on a dime. If we get a day like today, we are in the red big time. We're supported by members. We've got a growing membership base, 230 business members there now. And we've got 8 board members and a CEO, including basically 4 staff at the Information Centre, 4 full-time employees, 5 staff now, we've got 2 part-timers. So that's basically the organisational structure. We've kept the same structure for the past sort of 12 years. It's kept pretty well, and we are involved with sort of multiple activities around the town. Importantly, we've got accreditation. Now this is last year we actually transitioned out of the eyesight network. It became too costly. Cost benefits just went there. I'll highlight that in the financials in a moment. It's costing us too much with very little benefit. We're still obviously with the AA and being accredited and audited again this year, and it's going very well. 88,000 turnover last year, so we've got 1.5 staff running that. And there's around about 300 contacts or 300 people come into the AA weekly. It's about 50 or 60 a day, so it's quite a large turnover. And there's about 85 people or contacts, that's phone calls and walk-ins into the eyesight itself. So it's about 385 contacts per week in that site, which is pretty good. So our projects in flight for 2025, effectively we is to continue to provide that 7-day service at the information centre. We're still doing the council liaison groups. Only had one this year. We need to do that again. We'll do that before Christmas with the council, depending on what happens tonight, of course.
Well, it's just one part of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're obviously complying with the existing service agreement in place. The business after fires have been really going well. We had 95 gains Z1 last week. It's consistently at that number. The quality of those events speak for themselves. We're getting really good feedback. We're actually booked out until mid-27 now already, which is great. Profitable events, which is great. AA and the kiosk sales, we're looking hard at those kiosk sales, which look at those margins. Again, no one's buying, which is a problem. But there's a national problem. We can't solve that here today. We also the Christmas decorations take a bit of maintaining, and security cameras, obviously. We're also working on 10 or 11 new cows coming into the herd. 26, so February 26, they should be ready to go. That should be 26. We're still engaging with the council with the streetscape. It's good to see that it is moving. We've been quite on top of the graffiti. We've been taking that onto ourselves to do, and we seem to have got on top of the culprits. We haven't seen familiar tags for a while, so that's a good thing. And also a new thing is the Christmas tree. So these are non-compliant building in a residential influence zone. It's commonly known. Better known as a Christmas tree. So that takes a bit of maintaining. We've actually had to replace it this year already for free because the balls disintegrated on us, which was a manufacturing fault. And they replaced them for us, which was good. We've looked at the AA commissions, making sure we're still profitable there. We want that permanent top pub roundabout. That's next phase looking into TA. That's that. We replaced our chamber car. For goodness of Brian Tucker. Yeah, did a great job there, so it's cool. And we're also looking at an emergency services business board for next year, given that the Oak Lane group is disbanded. They need some money, and we're happy to take a look what we can do there. Looking to roll over the funding today, obviously. We've got Meet the Candidates evening tonight, and that'll be a great night. It'll be a safe and enjoyable function. And the
For whom?
well, I've got two security.
Safe and enjoyable.
You're lucky that it.
Yeah, that's right.
Tomorrow.
And we've got a little bit of national TV profile now. Lauren's over on national TV about 2 weeks ago on the radio as well. Just trying to pump Lauren's already in a positive way, which seems to be being obviously. All right, so that's what we're up to. And so some of the financial performance, whether you can see that or not, but I'll just highlight it. I broke it into the financial performance side of things over the last 4 years. We've got the grant increase here of 10,000 from the previous year, which set off the $10,000 decrease in the fireworks revenue. We did have a weak start to the night last year, which the crowds just didn't show up until late. We have got an increase in membership. We increased our membership by $10,000 over the past 4 years, and we were actually receiving interest on our term deposits of over grand on term deposit as reserve, and getting interest on that too, which has actually had a pretty significant contribution. So income is up, which is good, but so are costs. And we spent about $7.5 on repairs and maintenance of the building last year. Insurance has gone up 60% in 1 year. It's because of a lot of that new stuff with the tree and the security cameras and so forth. $8,700 insurance. And we had some conference expenses again with the eyesight and also the chamber, which we just don't get value out of, and that cost us $8,500. That was, we had to attend those just to get the accreditation. Again, it just created unnecessary overhead, which we've backed down. So still made a $22,000 cash surplus, but a $3,000 technical loss after depreciation. Depreciation's increased to $25,000 as opposed to $7,000 4 years ago. So just gives you an idea of some of the assets and stuff we've accumulated. Now they're depreciating. So, but still, it's still a good heart. The next page there just shows more of the. I picked out some costs that are going up and the sales that are going up, sort of left to right there. So the sales are heading the right direction from the AA, and so is the operational grant. It's had a little lift there. Fireworks expense income has been pretty steady. Membership has been increasing on a regular plane, so that's based on numbers, and we've increased the fee as well. So we're going to double it there. Total revenues, that's the big skyscraper there, all pretty solid going up. So is our gross profit. So the top lines are going pretty well, but yeah, as I said, their wages are going up too. We need to do that. We've got good people, we've got to retain those. Liz and Kathy have been with us since 2008, which is awesome. So well done, Kathy.
Rolex watch soon.
Yeah. Yes. So it's done very well, and it's very conscious of the budget constraints with regards to salary expectations. So expenses have gone up. We've got a few one-offs in there, as I said, with the conference expenses and so forth, and the insurance we're going to have a good look at again. So it has impacted our gross profits. It's the first time we've been slightly below the line for 3 years, but our cash profit is still down. Okay, so just for your information, the cost-centric contribution. So we've got $381,000 of income. The eyesight has contributed about 162 of that, of which 135 is grants. The AA has contributed 88,000, and the chamber activities, including fireworks, membership, and sponsorships, 130,000. So we've allocated the costs based on the overhead or the staff associated with those activities. And so basically we've got a profit in the chamber of about $10,000 and a $5,000 loss in the AA and a $15,000 technical loss in the eyesight. So there's a bit of cross subsidisation going on, and overall $3,000 loss. All right, so that's I think we're on a pretty good heart. I think there's some cost analysis and reductions this year. If we have a good fireworks, we'll be okay. Yeah. So, any questions?
Yeah. No lights are on, so I just really want to acknowledge the collaborative relationship that we have, council with the chamber. Really enjoying that together we can do so much more, and very aware of the look and the feel of Morrinsall and how we want to enhance that. And obviously with the Lions Club recently, obviously resurrecting, working with Morrinsall, Keep Morrinsall Beautiful. I'm really appreciative of their efforts in that space, because that, and together, community working together, we can really create some really good outcomes. Challenging financial times, obviously reflected on sales in the kiosk, and it's retail at the end of the day, isn't it? Retail is hard across New Zealand. It's not unique to any particular town. That's the sign of the times, isn't it? I really want to congratulate you on your increasing membership. I reflect on actually I had a reporter call me in October last year, so it's coming up a year ago, wanting to do an article about Morrinsall, and I go, what about? She goes, about the problems in Morrinsall, and I said, what problems? I see a town that's got a positive vibe and doing really well. So it didn't turn into a problem at all, and I think that really reflects the connectivity of the community and what you're achieving there as a chamber is bringing your business community together, and really want to congratulate you on that. And I'm sure my fellow councillors agree wholeheartedly with my sentiments.
Yeah.
So thank you. And of course, you employ Kathy. Kathy, you know, it's great. You've been in the role for 17 years, and what you don't know isn't worth knowing probably. But that passion,
anyway.
but your passion for the role is also shouldn't be underestimated, because the chamber, you help make the chamber look good too, don't you? Is this, can I say that out loud? You know, and that relationship is so important. So would someone like to move the recommendation that the information be received? So I've got moved Gary and seconded Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And thank you for coming in and
That's a pretty cow. Where's that going?
That one's actually been there for quite a while, and the man to my left actually has that one because it's MBS advisors. Why that's been actually chosen to be put in the so she's a delight. Actually, she's due for a bit of a refresh, isn't she, Nigel? Yes, she.
And we have to be proud of the cows of Lawrenceville.
We could perhaps put the Thomas cow up there.
Actually, that could do with the refresh.
Yeah, I know.
As well. So we'll have
I've got one of my granddaughter on that one.
yeah.
Okay, then we'll thanks for coming in and really appreciate the efforts. Right,
See some of you tonight.
yes, we'll do. Okay, we'll now move on to item 7.5, which is the adoption of the submissions to the external organisation policy. And we've got Charlotte sending that one this morning.
Good morning, everybody. So we're here to present the submissions to external organisations policy, which we presented to a council workshop on the 10th of September. So the policy aims to formalise and streamline council's approach to making submissions to external organisations, ensuring that we have alignment with statutory responsibilities, strategic direction, and the community outcomes. It enhances the quality, consistency, and influence of council's contributions to national and regional policy developments. So staff is seeking the adoption of the policy for council to authorise staff to make minor editorial changes to the policy following adoption if needed, and for council to approve the delegations highlighted through the report, which include delegation to the mayor or deputy mayor in the mayor's absence to approve council submissions, and delegation to the chief executive to approve technical submissions. So I'm happy to take the report as read and respond to any questions.
Oh, sorry. So we've got a mover in Sue and a seconder in Kevin. Before I put the motion, I think this does make practical sense that it gives staff clear direction on the process, and that makes for a good streamlined system in place. So well done. No further comments, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now item 7.6 is the person drive. And we've got Ellie presenting this one.
Hello. I am presenting this on behalf of a member of the public who wanted council to reconsider something that happened well back in 2006. To give you a brief history, it's outlined in the report. At the time, CT Investments, now known as TKR Investments, were interested in some land along with some other people that council was putting up for tender at McPherson Drive. It is in between our current own your own properties that we still have, that council still manages. And during the tender process, we, council, put in the tender if people wanted to identify that they would use it for 65 or 55 plus housing, elderly housing or not. And of the tenders that went out, 4 were received. 3 of them identified that no, and then 1 did. That was the successful company of CT Investments. I also thought it was interesting to note that I didn't want to put the value, but CT Investments, due to the significant value that they put above the others, are likely to have won that tender anyway, regardless of this ticking of the box. But to carry on, then what happened is now TKR Investments believe that a letter was received by council to them in about 2012, identifying that this encumbrance, which was put on at the time of the tender, to say that they could, I've skipped a bit. They won the tender, and as part of the tender process, an encumbrance was put on the title that the land could only be used for 55 plus and older housing. Then, now skip forward 2012, TKR Investments believe a letter was received from council identifying that this encumbrance could be removed. No action was taken, and we are now here today where this encumbrance is still on the title, and they are looking to develop and sell to not just 55 plus housing for people.
So just clarification that we have no record of a letter.
We have no record. We've reached out to Brookfield and whatnot, and we have no record, and they were unable to find a letter in their own systems as well. Are there any questions to clarify?
When I look to the models, does that work?
Does it work?
Yeah, you know what I was trying
Does
to say.
private
Yeah,
ownership.
it's sort of, if the
Well,
older person's housing sort of situation.
well, I think what we're going to look at the moment is that we're talking about 2006. Those properties on either side, one's on Page Street, I think, the other one's on. They effectively surround a horse paddock, right? And it would be nice to see that property developed into housing. My understanding is that TKR are not going to do that, right? We've got plenty of housing of all sorts, 55 pluses and whatever availability further out of town. I'd like to see some development there. And if it meant that this encumbrance meant that a future developer wasn't prepared to take it on, I'd be more than happy to see it removed.
Okay.
I will ask the question of you, Bruce. Do you think Morrinsville is getting younger or older on average?
Well, I'm getting older. I'm getting older.
Thank you, Councillor.
Everyone gets older, nobody gets younger.
I'm aware that time is a relentless march forward. But as the population of Morrinsville grows, is it getting younger and yet, or is it getting older as the population increases?
Our planning staff would probably be more able to provide that now. But if I was to look,
hazard a guess for
it's not getting younger.
Other than saying that young people are moving there.
But they are, but those that are there are getting older.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's.
Okay.
Really,
Well, I think
the issue is I don't see the encumbrance being of great benefit to the town. I can see some development there.
That's that's where I was going.
Okay. Yep. Kevin.
If Bruce was to move that, I would second it. I can't see,
Okay.
any reason for the encumbrance to be there.
Yeah.
They would have wanted the tender if they hadn't ticked that box anyway. So
Yeah.
there are plenty of old.
Age,
55 plus age, blah blah blah.
Yeah. And I guess to throw another action that council took a few years ago when we built the stadium in Te Aroha, I believe we sold some properties in Te Aroha to make up the shortfall in the capital cost for the stadium and the endowment properties. So that's sort of
Same sort of sense.
it's a very similar parallel that you could draw. Right. So, Kevin, you are keen to move the recommendation.
I'm happy to move.
Bruce, okay, Bruce is moving it, and Kevin will second the recommendation that council agrees to remove the encumbrance 7540819.1, currently on the land record, effort of title. You say 72A/435, so make sure we've got the right property. I'll put the motion. There's no further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Yep.
No reported from Russell, I suppose. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now move to item 8.1, which is the quarterly legislative tracker report.
Road.
Okay.
Alrighty. So, council staff have developed and implemented a legislative tracker to record submission opportunities, capture decisions on whether to submit, and provide a central record for the locations of submission documents. So this tracker is emailed out weekly, typically on a Friday morning by the policy team to the executive team and the third tier managers, following updates from Tai Tuara's weekly legislative tracker. Council will receive a quarterly report of submissions that MPDC has made within the quarter, but as this is the first report, the submissions included date back to the development of the tracker in early March through to 12th of September 2025. This does link with the external submission policy, so all of the managers and anybody included is encouraged to include any comments on status and submission updates within the tracker, and they're highlighted throughout the report in a yellow light so that anybody can see what's happened within the latest week. So we're happy to take the report as read, receive any feedback on the tracker, and answer any questions.
I'm sorry, when I read this, to me it looked like an operational situation. Governance, it's obviously something that you need and you get on with, and I can see that's clear to you, but it's something that you use, and I would consider it operational and have no problem improving.
It's probably a fair.
I think what the team have done, well, I don't think, I know what the team have done. Let's just reflect on our context as you see in that document. There's a lot of legislative changes coming through, and it's kind of just tracking that and making sure that we present information to council so that it can submit on the right things that it wants to, and make sure nothing slips through. This process is really tough. So this check-in gives you a chance to just stand back and say, what's coming? Is there anything that will surprise? Well, so it's very much an accountability process on our part, but also it's about making sure that we can keep pace with the legislative changes that are happening.
Yep, great.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so you're moving the report we received. We don't have any feedback really.
It's fairly intense.
Is there any feedback we want to put in there? I don't think there's really any feedback. It's obviously it is the complexity of the number of legislative changes that this becomes useful. And a seconder, Caleb? Motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move on to 8.2, which is the district plan and RMA update. Good morning, Jayashree and Carolyn. Fiona, one person. Sorry.
Kia ora. Happy to take the report as read today, but if you guys have any questions regarding the report, we're happy to answer them.
I do look forward to the future development strategy, although it be fairly high level. I think that is a key strategic document that will inform us of decisions going forward, because the decisions we make today need to align with the decisions ahead, with the strategy. So it's a logical process, and because of because we're in future proof, that is where we've got that opportunity to do a 30-year vision, because we aren't required to per se, are we? Like, there's no requirement to do a future development strategy as a council. Like, what's the process, just for clarity here?
Under the NPSUD, currently we're not required to, but what we understand is moving forward under the Planning Act, that every council will be part of the creating a regional spatial plan. So under that framework, we will be required to.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of this conversation. Is exactly that. Anybody got any other comments to make? Would be nice to get some of the plan change 49. Would be nice to get it completed, but again, it's changes, and that's where we're going. Look forward to that.
The main change that it stopped. It started again under a new legislation.
Yep. Like we've got certainty, because we've got no certainty.
We don't know when that will happen.
Yes, I can answer that one. We're preparing a report to come to the next council meeting on plan stop visions, and part of that we'll have some recommendations in relationship to that plan change.
We might just kind of need to know that.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, can you give a few of us a bit of a highlight as when that might happen?
So
the reason I ask.
Yeah, okay. So under the plan stop legislation, basically there's a red light for all plan changes.
Yeah.
So we need to apply to the minister, and as part of the application to the minister, we need to produce some evidence. And so we're in the throes of preparing that, but we need your endorsement of that. So that's what we were seeking to do at the next council meeting. And we've had some, as I said, some initial discussions with MFE, so we sort of understand what's required as part of the application. So yeah, we're moving forward with that.
I find it ironic that the intention is to stop councils wasting their office time and their ratepayers' money on plan changes, but we have to then go to the government to request the ability to actually continue them. Isn't that wasting our officers' time and ratepayers' money on just getting started again?
Yeah. Yes, you can say that.
Yeah. I guess there's some context to that though.
Yeah, I guess what the government is indicating is that there is new legislation coming out. We don't really know what that's going to look like. We've had some indications around, it's going to have a spatial aspect, and it's going to be more enabling, and there's a few other things that we know a little bit of detail, but the big detail, we don't know what it is. Government's trying to say, if it's these X plan change like hazards or something like that, then yes, continue to go. But if it's these other ones, we don't want you going to a lot of work and then it's all going to change and you'll get halfway through a process. If you look at plan changes can take years, because the only statutory time frame is it's 2 years from notification. So then once you notified it, to make a decision. Once a decision is made, that can be appealed, then you can have court cases. They can literally go on for 10 years. So what the government, I understand their intention is, don't go down that process because we've got new information, and I guess it's their thing that you may be putting money, that's not going to be well spent, because the new legislation that might come in might have a totally different lens, so it might be more enabling than what the current legislation is. So you've spent that money with no intent. So yes, they are trying to be the gatekeepers.
So when do you think the new legislation will come in? Just why hold you to it?
We will get an indication at the end of this year that the bills are going to be introduced, and my understanding is the government wants the new acts enforced by the 31st of December 2027, and that's the reason why we've got the plan stop change, so the end of 2027, and then we'll go from there. But certainly by the end of the year, we will get an indication about what the new framework is looking like.
Because that's the thing, I guess we're caught in a little bit of a wheel just turning on the spot with a plan change, and December the 31st, 2027 is 2 years away.
So the team are really, like they said, they've been meeting with MFE to have these conversations. If you are MFE, these things are also being kind of dropped on you as well. So they're working through that process of what that means as well, because there is a bit of discretion in there. So the team are definitely doing as much as they can to get the information to give you clear guidance. Because this is new, they won't be able to bring it back to this council, unfortunately, but they are trying to move it as and give some certainty to our community as fast as possible.
Lovely, thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Bruce go. You go, Bruce.
Look, Mana Wakahuni Rohu. Can I have a bit more explanation? Or have we covered this before?
It's been raised several times, yes.
I must have been asleep.
So you want to give us a brief, just remind everyone what.
I think, well, perhaps I can. My concern here is understanding what it commits council to, especially when it talks about process for negotiation and what have you, and just whether it says it's binding. Is there a situation here where there is a relationship that is more of a partnership and requires election or whatever? I don't know. I want to know what's going on.
We've received some invitations, and under the Resource Management Act, we have to act on those within a certain time frame. So the purpose of a mana whakahono arohi is set out in the legislation. So it's about setting out the processes and procedures that we will sort of work together collaboratively with iwi on. So it's just at the initial stages of that, but there's certainly some particular timeframes that we're required to meet. So yes, yeah.
Something dear, I need to have
Dane.
I guess just out of interest more than anything, but if you're talking about that last lot of changes potentially coming in late 2027, but there's an election late 2026, and if the government was to change, what gets thrown out the window if it does? All of this, like you go back to the old system, or you like is some of this potentially going to be carried on? I mean, you're not the Labour or the National. So I don't expect anything, inside track or anything. But how do you think that works?
Yes, you're exactly right that there is a risk with this program that there is a change of government. And we know last time what happened with the change of government, the new acts were repealed within the sort of their first 100-day program. So I think it was only maybe within the first month. So we have no control over that. It's just the situation that we're in. I understand from information that's in the media that certainly Chris Bishop is trying to get some sort of agreement with Labour and their team as to what parts can actually we can move together on. I think
bipartisan approach. Yeah.
Yes, so I think that would be helpful because I'm sure most parties in New Zealand are a bit want to move on between like the political football or the Resource Management Act and just see what the new system looks like. So yeah.
Any further questions, Sarah Jane?
I mean, we all love to work in silos, right? So is the future-proof the Hamilton to Tauranga spatial corridor project, is that being done in conjunction with smart growth?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, no, we've met with twice in this.
I don't talk to the chair often.
No.
Your worship.
Yep.
Quick sidebar question. Just come. They're putting a tunnel through the Conway Road.
I was where Tim Van Holden was speaking last night, and he is still very keen on it. So.
Okay, that's not really related to this.
It's central.
This is not related. That's not related to this agenda item. Right. So if there's no further discussion, would someone like to move the report be received? Thank you, Caleb. The second of Dane. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now 8.3 is the Regulation 19 report, and we have Ryan and some of the team up the back there that are involved in this, and Sue, Councillor Sue, as the chair of the District Licensing Committee.
Lorena.
Oh, Lorena, yes. There's a busy team. There's a busy team works in the background in this space.
Okay.
So, are you going to talk to it first, Sue, or are you?
No, I am
to Ryan.
To Ryan.
Lovely. Good morning. Welcome.
Morning. So Regulation 19
Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the report, but it's to provide an update on the council's licensing function for the sale and supply of alcohol. I'll just go through it in summary. But the object of what we do is partly to do with the regulation of sale of alcohol, but it's to ensure it's undertaken safely and responsibly, and that harm caused by alcohol is minimised as much as we can. So the biggest thing we did last year was the bylaw that everyone's involved in to try to offset some of the costs for us. So it's a 25% increase, which will be reflected in next year's report. And then they'll be followed by another 25% increase and then a 3% increase after that. And that should bring us pretty much cash neutral. Just going to put on the special license activity for the reduced fee. We didn't do that at all last year. Same with the discretionary conditions that people can apply for. We had none of those. We've been working in the digital space, trying to make it more efficient process and more accurate. So that's where Lorena and the digital team have been working hard and been able to apply online for licenses. Comment on that? That's been quite a big piece of work, but it seems to be doing really good. And there's only been maybe one minor area that's already been tidied up, but other than that, it's running well. We are looking at advertising public notices on our website, which other councils do, but that'll be a saving for the applicant as well, because it'll be a lot cheaper to put it on our website than putting it in a local rag. Yeah, it goes into, there's a little breakdown of the cost again, just from the last 3 years worth, just so you get a bit of a view on how much we're at deficit. That's been addressed. We didn't do any enforcement last year, but that was due to police being unavailable for the controlled purchase operations, and I guess the work that we're doing on the bylaw was taking a lot of our time, and just getting some of the tools in place so we can also get out infringement notices now for breaches of your liquor license. And engagement with the licensees is we are mainly with the inspector's site visits, which he does every year, and online emails, newsletters that we're doing. That is in a nutshell.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to add the fun facts, I guess. You know, we sit here and listen to these sorts of things, but when you know what goes on in the engine room, it's getting all these things together. Alcohol's a very, very complicated, compliance-driven thing. So if any of you want to go and buy a off license or a cafe or bar, please think twice about it, because it is, you do have to follow the rules. And the part Monday, Tuesday, I've been part of being chair for 2 hearings in Matamata, ably assisted by Ross Murphy, who's from Hamilton, and Alan CSE, who's from Tauranga. And you know that those are tough, because you're talking to people about perhaps more the admin of their premises and their businesses. It's not like you can just open your business and go and do your own thing. There is serious compliance. I would like to, at this stage, say what an amazing job Lorena has done. She is so precise. We have a magnificent file on everything, and everything's been sent to us, so everything was done extremely well. Ross Murphy was so impressed that he probably will hunt her down if we're not careful. He was very, very impressed, because he's in that business. So Lorena, thank you. I think you did a magnificent job, and you also had another job, which is your food job, which you're going back to probably tomorrow, of trying to get that up. So you're doing a magnificent job, and to the team and to Ken, who does all the going around and checking on people. Yeah, they're a great team. They're really, really good. Thank you to them, definitely.
Great, thanks for that, Sue. Yeah, I think that's a really important part. And of course, you with a team that are customer facing as well, it's not always easy when you've got to tell people that they're not doing what they should be doing, or you've got to refine things. So yeah, but did it take a lot of time to get the applications online? Like, did you do that yourselves, or was somebody else involved in setting that up?
They worked with the compliance team.
Yeah. So that was an added to your workload as well from your day-to-day things, because obviously gathering the information for Sue to sign off the specials and stuff, which obviously I'd done previously. There is a bit of work there to do, but making it online makes it so much easier now. The thing is any licensing chair will need to take their laptop with them if they go away, because something might come up that needs signing. So
we once signed it on a phone. It wasn't particularly good, but we did it.
So that's, just to highlight that this is a legislative requirement that we must adhere to and do to our best ability. That's all good. I don't think there's anything else. If anybody else has got anything to say, you doing a great job. Interesting the statistics and where it's all heading, and like I said, doing that bylaw will help, because the ratepayers have been cross-subsidising this part.
And these hearings cost council, not yet. Not the last.
The cost of doing this over and above what we get in for it, it's insane.
So that's why we set the bylaw. Yeah. And so, because there was a submission to local government's AGM about the bylaws, but a lot of us have done it. They wanted the ability to change the fee structure. But we've addressed that going forward, and Brian reflected that in his report. So if there's no further discussion, would you like to move that the information be received? Seconder, Russell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Excellent. Well done. Now we'll move on to item 8.4, which is our civil defence emergency management with Ellie and Toka and Andy. Welcome. So we have a new member who's reported in our item.
Morena, Mayor Adrian and councillors. So the purpose of this report is to give you a quarterly update of civil defence and emergency management. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Andy, who has been employed as our emergency management manager. So that's a bit of a tongue twister if you say it fast. So I'd just like to hand over to Andy to introduce himself.
Good morning all. Andy Buber is my name. So I lived in the Waikato for 25 years. I spent 31 years in the police, left the police 2017 and went to work for the Waikato Civil Defence Group. So I've been a previous group controller, operations manager. I worked at corrections for a year as an emergency management advisor, which was a very interesting time. And while they were recruiting for corrections officers, wasn't tempted. I spent a year at Waikato Regional Council as an emergency management officer, and I've been waiting for an opportunity like this for a number of years. So I'm really thankful and appreciate being here, and really enjoying the different, views of the Maunga every morning when I drive to work. It's awesome. So thank you.
So you must live in Hamilton, do you?
I live in Upper Leamington.
Okay, Cambridge from Cambridge, yeah. No, it's an easy drive, but that's an easy drive. I was just curious. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. No, welcome. I hope you do enjoy being a part of this side of the Waikato, and obviously working with MPDC team was Waikato and Taranaki.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're really excited to have Andy on board, and as per the, I'll take my report as read and just highlight some of the key things that I think have been quite, have moved us a lot since the last time we reported back. So the first is around that service level agreement. So we used to have a service level agreement with Waikato Regional Council. For various reasons, we decided to move away from that. And as a result, we've set up our own shared service arrangement with Hauraki District Council and South Waikato District Council. And we have been embedding that since the 1st of July this year. So as you can see, we the shared service arrangement has Andy as the manager, Tuka is the Matamata-Piako EMO, so Emergency Management Officer, and there is an Emergency Management Officer, Brett in Hauraki and Martin in South Waikato. So it has been a lot to establish, but we are already seeing the benefits of coming together and that collaborative approach, both from systems and processes, but also within that resilience space. And that was one of the key drivers behind the shared service, was to have resilience. So moving on, just in regards to the work plan. So with the coming on board of Andy and the shared service, we're just looking at reflecting on what our work program is. And we do envisage that a lot of our work program will be consistent across the 3 councils. So about 80%, if we had to put a figure to it, will be consistent across the 3 councils, but it needs to allow for the individual councils to have their say. So we are working through that at the moment, and we're still working on what that would look like, but there is a driver for that consistency that will allow Tuka, if Brett was away in Hauraki, to be able to go over there and know the systems and processes that Hauraki use. Also, in reviewing that work plan, group have on Monday, or the joint committee on Monday, have just approved the Waikato group plan, and that includes a 5-year action plan, which is what the group, including all of the territory authorities under group, are going to work on in the next 5 years. So we will be reviewing that and making sure that is reflected in our work plan. So that's what's happening. The group plan has been a key driver and a key focus over the last little while. So that's what's been happening at a regional level. In addition to that, the group has been looking around iwi participation and looking for iwi representation on the key committee. And KEG has signed off, and my understanding is the joint committee, who Russell sits on and represents Matamata-Piako, have signed off and are looking at a strategic initiative where iwi will have a seat at that KEG level, which will provide input and build partnerships around what we need to do in an emergency and how we can better prepare and recover from events. At a national level, as you're probably well aware, there is a lot of change happening at that level around a lot of legislation, and one of those is around the CDEM Act. Last time we came to you, you delegated myself to sign off a submission on the Emergency Management Bill, or the discussion document that has been done, and that was reflected in the legislative tracker today. We still anticipate that this change will come in before the next government, and you can see in the item today there's a little bit of a timeline. We are hoping to get onto some webinars to see what that will mean for us in more detail. So we have some high-level directions, and that is included in the report. However, we're looking to get a little bit more detail of what that act or that bill may look like. So that is the highlight. I'll hand over to Russell unless you've got anything else to add from the joint committee.
Unfortunately, I wasn't there on Monday.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, because next time Andy will be presenting this report to you. So now that he has all been introduced to you, but we're open for any questions that you may have.
Go for you.
Just confused. So are we still going to be a member of the Waikato seating?
Yes.
So the SLA will be represented on there as well as that council rep?
So the shared service agreement does not take away our responsibility under section 64 to provide civil defence for our community. what we're doing is we're providing that through a collaborative approach. So we will still have our representative. I will still be the key member on, and we will still have ownership of it. We're just looking at providing resilience and collaboration about how we provide for that. We will not, because we are the lead authority in the shared service, we are not taking responsibility for Hauraki and South Waikato to provide their their civil defence function. We're just collaborating on it. And that's very clear in the documents that we have signed.
And it's a great opportunity, like you suggested before with Martin and Brett, wasn't it? That if you're away, that they can cover for you as well. So I guess that's the belt and braces approach of a localised approach where you've got three councils collaborating, understanding each other's issues, whether, you know, and again, it is a bit of a belt and braces to get that resilience.
Do like local SLA training between the three.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, we're still embedding it. Andy only came in.
It takes some time.
A little while ago in the beginning of September. But that's the idea, that we will have resilience, we'll have consistent systems across the three shared services councils. We're also looking at potentially, we run an exercise every year, every second year should be one. Run an exercise that's collaborative, and it's actually all three councils, so we do actually get to work in those spaces. But that's on our wish list. We're just embedding at the moment, but we do have, I guess, a big vision of what this could be. And just to note around shared service, we also have a local duty arrangement, and that includes not only our shared service councils, but also Hamilton City and TCDC. Because events don't just happen at 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, they can happen any time. As you can see, the beautiful weather out there at the moment. We have local duty officers that track our rivers, that track, vet service updates, and we actually have a local duty shared service arrangement as well across those 5 councils. So Tuka here isn't on duty 24 hours a day. It's actually only 1 in every 6 weeks. So we're looking at quite a bit of resilience in a number of spaces across this area.
And I guess the other interesting thing about adverse events is that sometimes more than one council is affected, and that doesn't prevent us from reaching out to the other groups to assist. That's the whole thing. When you declare an emergency, it does bring in further capability to assist, because the reality is our little team here at Matamata-Piako is that something happens, they could be affected, and to prevent them from performing the tasks that are required of us, that's a reality in some ways. So it's all part of that collaboration. So, but yeah, great work happening, Tuka. I know he's done quite a bit of work with us since he's been on board. Because at the end, we want to empower our communities to be resilient. So it's not only what we do, it's also for our community to be able, what they can do for themselves is also critical, because we cannot be everywhere. Dane.
Yeah, I just wanted a little bit off topic from this, but welcome to the team, Andrew. And I just wanted, is the role that you're taking up, is that funded across the 3 councils? Yeah, good. Just looking at one manager and then 3 different areas. So good.
Cool. Any further questions?
Yes, I'm assuming that will make sure we've got software, technology, all that sort of thing will be the same across the 3, so that no matter where you are.
So at this stage, we can dream. At this stage, it's about access. So each council has different systems, and we've learned that along the journey that we have been through. So it's about having access at this point, but definitely there is a dream to have consistent systems across the board. But those are individual council decisions, which are not necessarily controlled by CDE.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So are there quite a few different systems out there across, like we sort of think that, what other, we always think of things quite laterally, don't we, that it's just everyone has the same thing, but obviously it's a bit like accounting packages, isn't it? There's different accounting packages out there, so maybe you can shed some light, Tuka.
Yeah, so where all councils have their own sort of systems in terms of like authority and document management, we've agreed as a group that Microsoft Teams for response, civil defence emergency responses will be the same and will be consistent across the region. And as of last year, we undertook what's called the compendium workshop, which looked at standardizing templates across the region. So if whether or not we're working in a local EOC for a local event, or if we're working in the Waikato regional office coordinating a regional response, all the templates and stuff should be the same. So whenever staff go to training with Jeff, they get trained on the templates they will actually be using at the time. And it's not just that you may see something like that, you may see something like that. It should be consistent as well. Yeah, no define things. And if you go from here to Hauraki or South Waikato, it'll be the same, even if you go to Taupo or to Waikato district.
Great.
So the migration to Teams has really enabled this to happen a lot more easier, because they don't have to get into our system. We can invite them into the Teams environment as a guest, which has been really timely.
Yeah. So are many councils on using Teams at Team Microsoft 365?
Yes, but not all of our shared services are, or their whole council.
Yeah. Good to know. Right, would someone like to move that the information be received?
I'm happy to move. Just comment on the last 5 years, as Kev will probably know, my predecessor, that this CDM is a beast, and it's a very, very steep learning curve. And I'd say if I was to stay on, it was, I still wouldn't know bugger all. Every time I go there, it's just another level up. But it's been very interesting, and I wish whoever takes the role on after October all the best. It's been a great journey, and I think Kev probably check that too. But I'm happy to have the information we received. There's some really good people on that team. Yeah, 3 more years to drill, and I'm happy to see it.
So moved Russell, seconded Kevin. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, and welcome, Andy. Right, now we've got item 8.5, which we will take as read as the external minutes. And obviously there's Hauraki Golf. You got anything you'd like to speak to that, James, as our representative?
Speak to that briefly. So I'll take the minutes as read, but the one item that I will highlight was that the Minister for Conservation, Honourable Matamata-Piako, came in and presented at the forum, and is particularly speaking to the Hauraki Golf Marine Protection Bill, which is coming assent at the moment, and it's seeing a shift in the protected areas of the Hauraki Golf from 0.3 to 6%. So a big shift in aligns with the goals of the forum, which is very reassuring. Department of Conservation will also be there, and the enforcement is going to be in the first couple of years about communication rather than whatever.
That's good, right.
So that was the one point that I'd highlight. And then the second thing, just in the tone of the previous presentations, that was my last Hauraki Golf Forum meeting. So I just wanted to thank the council for their support for me to attend and contribute on behalf of the council, and particularly acknowledge the team here, Jashri, Caroline, Commissioner and Nathan, for exceptional support and work. And there's also a technical officers group that gets together as well, where they're all very highly spoken on. So that's probably all I had to say. Over up from me.
Great, thank you, James. And just with the Waikato Regional Transport Committee meeting minutes, just there was the one item that reflected work that had been done with our team, and obviously the work that I've been doing in advocating for the new crossing at the southern end of town. This is just was a recommendation to amend the transport plan, but it's purely for funding to scope the need for the crossing. That it's not the crossing's happening. This is the first stage in the process, just to note that, so that I was happy to be the mover of that recommendation. But again, any questions happy to take? That being nothing else, it's not right to move that the minutes be received. Thank you, Sue. As a seconder. Thanks, Dave. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carry. And then the final item of our open agenda today is my mayoral diary. The things have slowed down a little bit through July, August.
Yeah.
Really? Working a few days.
Yeah, well, it's a full-time job, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, there was to throw a few photos in. Quite cool to meet with the Morrinsville residents that were to have been born there and lived in Morrinsville all their lives. There were a number of people that, of course, were born there but didn't live in Morrinsville. And I think it was a lovely morning tea had with Gerald and Claire with their better halves. And of course, they both live in Climate Village, so they know one another well. So that was a nice little positive, happy thing to do to celebrate Morrinsville's presumably reaching population of 10,000 as their community grows. Yeah, there's always a relation somewhere along the way. And of course, when I spoke down at Rail Safety Week, that was a real privilege to do that as well. So I'd like to move that my diary be received. Seconder, thanks Russell. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So now if we could move into, yes.